So today I am wearing pink because today I am talking about Mean Girls the musical. So on my channel I talk about writing, but even more so about stories. I love to talk about stories, I love to analyze them, books, movies, TV shows, all that stuff to help me become a better storyteller, a better writer, and to help you hopefully as well. I also love theater, and I've been dabbling and chatting about musicals and plays I've seen on this channel before. I have a couple videos about Cinderella, I think something else, I'll put them here. So today we are talking about character development, theme, adaptation, and humor in the context of Mean Girls the musical, because about 2 months ago I saw the North American tour of Mean Girls, and I have some stuff to say about it. Namely, and very controversially, I liked the musical better than the movie. The musical is more sincere than the movie, and, in my opinion, a more in-depth exploration of the characters, which made it interesting and enjoyable to me. Overall, I think the musical might do a better job at exploring the themes of the book. You didn't miss it. There is no, book version of Mean Girls, but there is a book that it was based on, and I'll get there. I'm not saying that one is a better story than the other. I think that they actually have different purposes. Mean Girls, the movie, and if you watch Sarah Z's video on this, she's very clear, it is a comedy, it is a satire, and one of the reasons she says that Mean Girls, the musical, is not good is because it loses, to an extent, some of those satirical elements of it, because it has become sincere, and neither of those things is good or bad. You can have a preference. I preferred, this time watching, at this point, I preferred the musical version. The reason I know so much about this book is because of a YouTube video from James Goodall called How to Adapt Mean Girls, which I will be referencing and pulling pieces from extensively in this video. I will also be heavily referencing Sarah Z's video, Mean Girls Isn't Good, although that's more towards the end. So, in case you weren't aware, Tina Fey drew heavily from a nonfiction book called Queen Bees and Wannabes by Rosaline Wiseman, which was written as a guide to help parents talk to their teenage daughters. Now, before I continue, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to put in a little disclaimer here. I have not read this book. It is a self-help book for parents of teenagers. I am not a parent, a teenager, a teacher, or anybody I think who could really benefit from this book, even though I'm going to be honest, after watching the movie about how to adapt Mean Girls, I'm a little bit curious. Maybe I will read it someday, but I have not read it, and fair enough. But I do trust James Goodall, and the author herself, we think, commented on the video and said his video was the best analysis she'd seen of Queen Bees and Wannabes and Mean Girls together, so we're going to go with what he said, and I'm going to sum up his summary of the main points, of Rosaline's book. So, or at least the main points as relating to Mean Girls. And he kind of talks about 3 main ideas in his video. The first being that all schools have cliques with queen bees, wannabes, and all of these other defined roles in them. Even the non-popular, geeky, nerdy cliques, like the band or whatever, theoretically have queen bees and the other personas, like targets, bankers, gossips, people pleasers, etc. The roles can change. They can change year to year or with certain changes in the school. They're somewhat fluid. And the kind of key point there is that the best thing for a girl to be in Rosaline Wiseman's book is a floater.
I'm always on your left.
She's cheating on you.
Was I the new queen bee?
Do you know what everyone says about you?
There's nothing like being targeted to teach your daughter about empathy and understanding for people who are bullied and/or discriminated against. She can see the costs of fitting in and decide she's better off outside the clique.
And with this lesson, Katie assumes the 7th and most desirable role, the floater. The floater is not beholden to a single clique and can float between them. She has less power over others than a queen bee does, but it's still always better, because the queen bee has less sense of self. Katie had to sacrifice her identity to become queen bee. As the floater, she doesn't have to do that.
The second idea is that toxic pressures and ideas and concepts in girl world, and she refers to kind of the middle school, high school girl atmosphere as being girl world, particularly about the so-called value of a boyfriend, about blaming other girls for poor behavior of boys, like cheating. Oh, it's her fault, not his fault. She pulled him away or whatever. The pressure to be sexy but not slutty, like all of these different things. These politics and pressures create situations where girls become much more vulnerable, specifically to violence.
Maybe it's a little irresponsible to ignore the subject of male violence. Then again, a PG-13 teen comedy might not be the best vehicle to discuss it, at least not in that kind of detail. Instead, Faye hints at the subject as part of a broader cultural issue.
You all have got to stop calling each other sluts and whores. It just makes it okay for guys to call you sluts and whores.
It would be difficult to confront such a charged topic without that becoming the focus. The thesis statement of the film becoming something like, women have to support each other as protection against male violence. Which is a point Wiseman makes, but it's not the main point of the book.
And then the third idea that he argues in his video, James Goodall, that Tina really concentrates on in Mean Girls, the movie, is identity, and the idea that girl world pressures often cause young girls to lose their sense of self and their identity.
Another exercise from Wiseman's Empower workshops is the Act Like a Woman box. Wiseman has the girls list the traits that affect a girl's social status. Desirable traits are placed inside the box, undesirable traits are placed outside, thus identifying the behavior girl world values and encourages, as well as the transgressions which will get you shunned. It's this which decides the pecking order of the cliques, though some girls are perfectly happy existing outside the box, and some cliques may even define themselves by these undesirable traits. Everyone is still beholden to the culture. Even those most harmed by it may uphold it just as much as those who benefit.
I think I'm joining the mathletes.
No. You cannot do that. That is social suicide.
You can't join mathletes, it's social suicide.
You cannot escape the culture, so you either comply or rebel. Katie complies. She learns how to benefit from Girl World by modeling herself after Regina.
You are just like a clone of Regina.
But this version of herself is an image she's constructed. Without being fully conscious, that's what she's been conditioned to do. As far as Katie is concerned, she's pretending. It's a persona she's putting on in pursuit of her revenge. But when that revenge is achieved, the persona doesn't come off anymore.
Somewhere along the way, girls start believing they're impressed. Who they are, their character, sense of self, and personality gets tangled up with their reputation and image.
Buddy, you're not pretending anymore. You're plastic. Cold, shiny, hard plastic.
As a direct result of being ostracized, Janice changed her image entirely.
The number one reason that I preferred the musical version of this is because of the song More is Better, and then it kind of morphs into I See Stars in the same scene. So this song is done at the party, the kind of party from hell, so not the Halloween party, but the party that happens at Katie's house. And it's when Erin comes up to Katie's room and they're talking, and she tells him that she was pretending not to understand math in order to get him to talk to her and to connect with him and stuff. And he's basically like, what? Why on earth would you do that? And they get much more of a conversation before Regina walks in than in the movie. And Katie starts singing about what is basically her character's misbelief.
I was alone a lot, mostly observing things like hyenas and migrations, and who cares? Now I have all these friends, I'm never by myself. I mean, look at all those people downstairs. More is always better, more people know my name, I have more shoes.
And then she gets into she pauses for a second and she says, you know what I don't have more of? I don't have stars.
Good, 'cause time to think is in short supply.
You haven't been alone, try Kenya with one phone. Almost no people, just like animals in sky. You know what I had more of? Stars, so many stars at night. But here there's so now.
What we think Tina Fey was probably exploring mostly in the movie was the idea of identity and image, probably leaning a little bit more into image in the movie. And we can assume she's leaning into the same ideas in the musical. In the musical, you see not only how she's hurting other people, but also how this has hurt herself. And that is a huge, huge part of that identity in clique, out clique, floater, not floater conversation, and probably one of the main messages of Wiseman's book, basically, is that you want your daughter to hold on to her sense of self. And there we see the grief of losing that sense of self. So in the end, like most things, this comes down to story structure. So we're going to look at John Truby's Anatomy of Story here, and we're going to put the beats of the musical and the movie up beside each other. To really quickly go through this, they're not beats necessarily, they're steps. He calls them steps, the 22 steps. I have pulled out the relevant ones here because analyzing a movie takes a lot of time, and we're not going to do that. So, generally, in the movie, we have, it's the same in the musical, Katie's desire is to make new friends. She wants to have friends. She wants to not eat alone at lunch in the bathroom stall. Her need is to realize that making friends should not come at the cost of her identity. And then we have like 13 other steps. There's lots of plot in there. There's the opponent. You could say opponent is Regina, ally is Janice and Damien. I think Gretchen and Karen would probably be thought of as opponents too. Mentor is probably Miss Norbury. And all those steps happen. We have the conflict. She has a plan. The plan is to overtake Regina, to make her lose her army of skanks, blah, 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 blah. This is a really interesting story because usually in a story there's kind of like two arcs you can go for a character. There is the positive arc, which is they start somewhere, maybe kind of bad, maybe kind of good, and they become a much better person. They learn their lesson. In the other one, you have the character start maybe middle, maybe kind of high, and then become like a bad person and not learn the lesson they're meant to learn and have that sort of negative arc into chaos. What we have here really, really interestingly is basically a textbook version of the first one, except she keeps going down the bad path for a really, really long time. So when I said this was the journey, that's not really what it looks like. Her journey is more she's here, and she goes down, 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 and then at the very end, she goes kind of like, bloop, and then doop, bloop, and then up. I don't know if that's helpful at all. She has a reversal right at the end of the story where she kind of learns the lesson just in time, having already lost a lot, and we get to see her kind of rise above that, but not totally. So maybe we could call it more of an ironic ending. So all of the plot happens, and then we have the step which is apparent defeat or apparent victory. I'm going to call this here apparent victory, and that is when Regina wears sweats on a Monday and the plastics kick her out of the lunch table. Katie becomes the new queen. That is her goal. She gets her goal at apparent victory. This is out of 22 steps, right? That's right in the middle. And it comes towards maybe I think that comes towards like the 3/4, 75% mark, which makes sense, right before we get into our climax. Then they go to the party from hell, and Katie talks to Erin upstairs. She gets drunk, she talks to Erin. When she leaves the party, which she lied about to her parents, and she also lied to Janice and Damien, not going to the art show, Janice yells at her, "You are a mean girl." Then we have our battle after that. That is when Regina goes and grabs the burned book, distributes it all over the school, and they end up having this sort of workshop. It's a very interesting battle, actually, because usually in a battle you want to have your opponent and your main character like as close together as possible, and that does happen here. Right before Regina gets hit by the bus, they kind of go outside and are talking. But we do sort of open it up to the whole school, like involved in this battle and all of these feelings. And I think that does really well thematically, showing from the book just how all of the different cliques have these dynamics where they're being mean to each other, where they're pushing each other out, where they're jostling for that kind of like power. Anyways, the battle is the burn book, the subsequent workshop. Then we have the gate gauntlet visit to death, which in both of them is Regina being hit by the bus. Then we have the self-revelation, which in the movie is at the mathletes competition, but generally Katie realizes, calling someone stupid doesn't make you smart, and that she has a lot to offer. And then she has her moral decision, and you could say she has multiple of these. She's kind of making amends. She confesses that she wrote the thing about Mrs. Norbury, so she takes responsibility for the burn book. You could argue this is basic human decency. But, it's a moral decision. And then when she's crowned Spring Fling Queen, she shares her tiara with all the girls. And that's sort of moral decision and sort of a kind of return with the elixir, if you know that beat from Hero's Journey, where they come back and they kind of share what they learned with the community. So those are the basic things that are the same between the musical and the movie. And what I really want to focus in on here is the step attack by ally. The attack by ally is a really, really important beat. And I'm going to try to find some examples here and throw them in of what that beat looks like. But if you want to really tell a powerful story, I think that's somewhere to look, because who delivers that attack, how many times it's delivered, how it's delivered, what they say, all of that really, really matters.
Look at Vince. Mr. Evans set up the workout, not me. Did you even ask to include us? Captain? I didn't go looking for the Red Hawks. The Red Hawks came to me, okay? I didn't sign up for this golf job. Fulton offered it. I said yes. My decision. But I show up to work. Same as you. So chill, man.
You get a speck of dirt on your pants and someone dry cleans
you. You wouldn't do the same thing.
If I was as good as you.
I did not say that.
You didn't have to.
And neither did you.
No, we didn't vote you captain because of your jump shots. Okay, we did it because you're the guy who usually knows what's up. But I guess things change.
You think you got me all figured out? Well, I don't think so. And I don't answer to you.
Then maybe you should start answering yourself.
And so let's talk about how they did it in both. So in the musical, we see the attack by ally beat quite a bit. The attack by ally comes before the apparent victory in the musical. There's this song called Stop, where Damien and Janice tell Katie to stop what she's doing. It is in relation to Erin, like her efforts to try to get Erin, but it is an attack by ally. It's basically saying you're going about this the wrong way. She won't listen to them. No hero generally listens to their ally when they are attacked by them and criticized for what they're doing. And then we have the attack by ally beat that is the same basic premise both in the movie and in the musical. So in the movie, this is when they're at the party at Katie's house. They go up, Katie and Erin go up into her room, and in the movie she ends up telling him, hey, like, I pretended to be bad at math so you would talk to me, and he's like, that's stupid. And then in the movie, she throws up on him. He runs away horrified. Regina comes in. In the movie, Regina comes in, then she throws up on Erin. Everybody runs away horrified, and she goes outside and has Janice and Damien kind of yell at her and be like, we're not friends anymore. You've, basically abandoned us. In the musical, we have things a little bit differently. The attack by ally is that beat. It is that song More is Better. So in the musical, she brings Erin to her room, and here are some of the lines. Erin says, is that you riding an elephant? And Katie says, oh my God, that is so embarrassing. And Erin says, no, that's not. It's awesome. And then she has the song More, which changes into Stars. And the last line, of course, is I should have thought it through a bit more. Erin leaves before Regina gets there. I don't think Regina even comes in the musical version. She's just kind of left there alone, and she has a really quiet moment because we're about to enter Act 3 where things are boom, 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 boom. We're entering the battle, and we get drama after drama, beat after beat. But here, she has a quiet moment. And I think it's powerful because she realizes she's lost her identity. Rather than just have other people say it to her, this is a really unique beat where the character kind of internalizes that attack by ally prior to the full self-revelation. So what are the other changes here? If we keep looking at the structure, both have the battle being the burn book. We have another really interesting thing in the musical though, because in the battle, it's Miss Norbury who has the line, calling someone ugly doesn't make you better looking, calling someone stupid doesn't make you smart, not Katie. And in this battle, John Truby calls it the conflict of values. The audience sees clearly for the first time which way of acting and living is best. In the movie, I don't know if we ever really see that. I think because it's a satire, because it's funny, you know, they're really, that moment when Regina and Katie are talking on the street, that is the main battle where we're supposed to see the values come up. But what's really interesting is that they're both bad people, or they've been acting like bad people. And so we don't really see which way of acting and living is best until later on, after the battle. And you always have variations in Act 3. There's nothing wrong with that. In the musical, it's interesting because it's almost like sort of the teachers and Janice's values versus Regina's and Katie's. And in the musical, we actually do get what feels like a win, because that is when Janice sings the song, I'd Rather Be Me. And she goes off and everyone's cheering about her. And this does happen to some extent in the movie, but the musical really drives it home. And it's my favorite song. I think it's so great. But she wins the battle. She's the one who is telling you and showing you the way of acting and living that is correct. Katie and Regina haven't really learned that lesson yet. We have the visit to death, Regina getting hit with the bus. And then in the musical, we have this really interesting self-revelation. And I'm going to be honest, I couldn't quite remember this part, so I found a copy of the script online. It might not be 100% accurate, and it might not be the most updated version. However, this is what she says. She says this out loud. Regina gets hit by the bus. Everyone's like, oh my God, Katie pushed her in front of the bus. This is her fault, blah, blah, blah. And she says, this is not my fault. Regina was a terrible person. We all thought so. I'm the good one in this story. Janice made me spy on her. Gretchen wanted me to get rid of her. Okay, not get rid of her, but it was not my fault she got hit by a bus. She got hit by a bus. And then she goes into the song Fearless. And some of the lyrics are, I sound like a monster. I was offered bad choices, but I could have said no. Blah, blah, blah. Time to find my way back and choose to be fearless. And that's when she goes and she tells Miss Norbury that she was the one who wrote the thing about pushing the drugs. And that's really, really interesting, because I think where the movie lacks is we don't necessarily get that one moment of self-revelation. You could argue that it happens in the Mathletes competition when she's facing off against the other girl and she suddenly realizes, hey, calling her stupid is not going to make me answer this question better, and that's fair enough. But what I really like, and musicals can do this, right, because the songs are meant to show the character's inner life. In novels, you do it through prose. In musicals, it's the songs, where we can really hear the processing, the thinking, the thought process that's brought her to the self-revelation, that's brought her to that self-revelation, that's brought her to the decision to do better. And I do like that in the musical, she has that revelation before she goes to Miss Norbury, because in the movie, she goes to Miss Norbury and then she has the self-revelation, where I think is a little bit more powerful to have her sing the Fearless song and then go, just because I think she has some voiceover in the movie maybe, but it really drives it home that this is a brave thing that she's doing and a good first moral decision. And then the Mathletes competition just kind of drives it home. And it's done really quick, and it's a victory for her versus a self-revelation. It's kind of the reward for learning a lesson, whereas in the movie, it's more the actual moment of self-revelation. Neither of these are necessarily good or bad, but I do really like how they've done it in the musical. So that's the structure. Onwards. All right, so that is why, using story structure, I think that the musical of Mean Girls is a more sincere, more sort of traditional, and sometimes more satisfying story than the movie. I'd be so excited to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.